Hello, Professor DeBello. This is my friend Mark. He helped me with the creation of this paper and was someone that I bounced ideas off quite regularly. And so I figured for my final video presentation project, I would kind of go through it with him and we could have an interactive discussion on like what went well, what went wrong. And so, Mark, you kind of already know the basis of this paper, which is this idea that I'm trying to really prove this existence of natural law theory and posit that it's the best one. And that the main issue, I think, with it is objective morality, and that people don't really believe in that type of thing. I think that's one of the key things in like natural law theory, right? Is that I don't have the time to convince everyone that they believe in an objective morality, but if I can convince like the key people, right, or enough people, and we agree that like that it is true that there's an objective morality, then we can just start enforcing it across the system because we know that if
Yeah.
we sat down and had the time, um, yeah. And then I think
Yeah.
this statement was really funny because when we were talking about it last, we didn't have this clause that is not under threat, and
Yes.
we were trying to create counterexamples for it. And Angelo came up with this great one about a runaway slave, in the sense that
I might not have heard that actually. Really, I want to hear this one now.
okay, and it was so all acts performed by an individual that severely impede another person's ability to exist consensually with the only benefit of the act being provided to the actor are morally impermissible is a true statement. And
Yeah.
Angelo's counterexample to this one was that he created this scenario where you had a slave owner and a slave, and the slave owner's entire ability to live was based off the fact that he owned the slave. And so, if the slave were to run away, he would severely impede the slave owner's ability to exist contentedly, and the only benefit of the act was going to be provided to the actor, right? The runaway slave. And Angelo said, so it's doing both of those things, but everyone believes that's perfectly morally permissible, and I do. And then when he presented it to me, I thought, absolutely, that's true. And so the great thing about fundamental moral truths is that that's fine if you create a counterexample, because all I have to do is add something that makes it true. And that's where the that is not under threat comes from. That's what I think one of the biggest strengths of a fundamental moral truth is, right? Is that when you provide some type of counterexample to it, you're able to just kind of go, okay, so if that is following all of the rules that I've stipulated, but is also morally permissible, I should be able to add reasonable characteristics that still cover broad enough claims and broad enough examples of it, and see and create this kind of new moral, more fundamental moral law that ends up doing well.
So are you worrying at all in this about um, trying to quantify um, like contentedness? Because it says provided only benefit provided to the actor.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what if one individual causes suffering upon another individual for a group? You know?
Um, yeah, and that's really interesting because I think it that really just means that it doesn't follow under this law, right? That the whole that the objective truth that
Oh,
I'm
okay.
trying to show to you, it doesn't follow under it. But I think that is, um, I think
Be a more difficult. Yeah.
that's a more difficult thing, but that also speaks a little bit more to like this kind of uh, more. It still speaks from objective moral truth because everyone would then think, well, actually, you know what? Then in those scenarios, it might be okay. Like,
Yeah, but it's a different premise,
but
right?
it's a
Yeah.
different premise, right?
Okay, so
Um,
you're saying here specifically acts that cause.
mm-hmm,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
But I know that we had some potential dissent in the idea of why should we then codify it into law?
Yeah.
Because of like this lack of like all right, so apparently we know that there are some moral truths, but if there are 10,000 of them and we only know 8, like what's the use, right?
Yeah, like how can we even begin to, because like we obviously are going to be having gaps, and we're going to be filling those gaps with like disingenuous or like untruthful morals.
uh
So are we trying to get like as close to the target as we can and just not worrying about the gray space, or like?
um yeah, that's difficult, right? Is because you want to try to kind of that's where it gets into a lot of gray space, and that's where that's where like how natural law theory functions becomes its own separate like I guess idea to talk about that I didn't really talk too much about in this paper. Is that like the action of natural law theory is that we don't know all the objective moral truths, and anyone that pretends to, I think, is absolutely insane, or they're just way smarter than me, I guess. But
Do you think? All right.
no, go
Oh,
for it.
actually, once you're done, I have a
No, ask
not
away,
quite.
ask
Okay.
away.
Do you think it would actually even work? Like, do you think that
Um,
if we had a criminal code based on absolute moral truths, the ones outlined here most specifically, but just as like an idea, do you think that that actually works in creating a society that can advance
um,
competitively, even with other society, with like other civilizations, or even in a perfect world with no rival civilizations? This is a two-parter, I guess.
yeah.
In a situation like we have right now with rivals, and in a situation wherein there are no rivals, do you think that this would create a sustainable, advanceable
Um,
civilization?
I I guess in like the argument for why do we want natural law theory in terms of like competing against other societies and civilizations, I do think that a pro-social civilization would outcompete a non-pro-social civilization, right? If you've got these two tribes and one of them says, all right, we're going to listen to these objective moral truths that we find to be true, and you've got another tribe that says, fuck it, our system is going to be based off of like rule of recognition or all these other legal systems. I would think that uh, like the objective moral truths are going to encourage pro-sociality. They're going to encourage people being kinder and helping each other out more and not doing bad to each other. And you can see throughout history that when human civilizations have worked together within each other, they've
Yeah,
done better.
it
Like
definitely seems like as a domestic policy, it's
mhm,
probably more beneficial.
yeah. And but when you get to international, um, I'm I'm not sure. That's actually a good point. And like, how do we, you know, uh, I guess that also like comes down to what are the objective moral truths, and like because I don't know surrounding like, do I have to be kind to a cheater that's cheating me, right? Like do I, or do I
Yeah,
am I allowed to do, commit acts that are potentially that normally would be morally impermissible, but because of the situation I'm in, become morally permissible, being that like this one, right? Uh, Performed for an individual that is not under threat, right? And so you can kind of extrapolate that on an international level of like, oh well, if I am under
yeah,
threat, then it's totally fine for my country to now act um, what might be
yeah,
traditionally
definitely.
morally impermissible. It becomes morally it loses that clause because you're under threat.
Do you think there's any difference here between the perception of threat and like the reality, like the real existence of threat?
Yeah, yeah, and I think um, yeah, and I think the biggest issue I guess I have with this whole thing, and with like natural law theory in general, even though I'm positing and I'm saying it's a good thing, is that a lot of these objective moral truths, even though they're objective, they still require perception to exist, right? Because you're making these objective moral truths about subjects, and so right. So if it's an objective moral truth that, severely impede another person's ability to exist contentedly, like what's existing contentedly for somebody and what's severely impeding somebody's ability. And that is, I think, what the purpose of natural law theory and like the legal system is for. It's to like kind of hammer out those details, kind of come to a consensus on, all right, you shoulder checked someone because you were rushing to the store, right?
Yeah.
That's not a severe impediment, even if that person believes it to be. The courts are kind of there to hammer out the fact that no, that's not a severe impediment. And
Yeah.
so,
Or well, so what I was also thinking of though when I asked that as well was if somebody acts because they perceive that they are under threat, but they are not really under threat. But like that perception was very genuine.
Yeah.
Would it be like just to punish them because whatever they still acted in a way that hindered somebody else?
I don't know. I would want to say that no. I would want to say that like we have to kind of hold people to be good rational thinkers in some sense, and that we have to believe, like create a standard of, hey, if you're not impaired in any severe way out of your control, then you should know that that wasn't a real threat. It's like kind of like the do you know like the gay panic defense?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, I do.
that's
Yes, I do.
that's the first thing that came to my mind. Kind of this idea that like people are like, oh, I was afraid because they were gay, and so it was fine for me to do X to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And I don't think that this is like something that like you have to know the answer to for your paper, but because it's not. Because once again, as you clarified in the beginning, the point is that these premises are the premises as written, and everything else is like an additional premise, right? Or like an additional add-on. So it's not like you need to really come up with an answer for it. It's just kind of
yeah.
I don't know. That's just food for thought, I guess.
Food for thought, and kind of this idea that if you, I know, I think it's good because if you want to like push this idea of natural law theory, like I do, I don't need to have these answers for the paper, but the overall theory does, right? Like natural law theory and objective moral truth needs to have these answers, or else, you just get to reject premise 9, or premise 9, right? That if an objective morality exists, then our legal system should be based upon it. And that you can create all these objections because you go, okay, you in some sense need to know what the objective morality is. Because you have to be able to ask these questions, which is, I think, like a really tough part of it. And so, yeah. Did you find any? I don't know if you've got it up on your computer or not.
Yeah, I do.
Did you find any of my objections to my replies to the objections to be very weak or anything? Because I know when I talked about it with Dr. Portmore, he thought that I kind of used a straw man to attack the objections to 3 and 8.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I don't know if I would have caught it on my own. I have no clue really, but because it was there when I was reading it, I do have to agree with that take on it, that it does seem like it's a bit of a straw man. There's probably some deeper arguments to be made by the opposition.
Yeah, and so I actually don't know what I would really do to respond to Douglas Portmore's attack on my idea that like it's a straw man, because and that's I guess one of the big issues that like I've found with this paper in general, right, is that like I would want to hear Like this works. This style would work really well if I had objections, right? If I published this paper and then released it, and then I
There were
had a bunch of
actual,
other
yeah.
smart people going, "Oh, hey, no, this is obviously wrong, and this is why I disagree with it." And because I guess I'm bad at being charitable to my devil's advocates, which I just think is like an overall flaw in this paper. It's
Yeah.
some some slight narcissism there of
Sorry,
just
it's just when you said that you're just the devil's ad, just that I, I just know you so well is all.
yeah. I don't struggle being the devil's advocate, but a lot of times
No, 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 no.
I struggle being charitable to devil's advocates against mine because of course what I thought
Well,
was
they have to be
right,
able to prove you wrong. If they can't, if you could prove yourself wrong, you wouldn't be making the argument.
right? Yeah. Uh,
What evidence would be that the truth?
Mark just brought up an interesting what uh, I guess counterexample to three in the sense that there's like a historical example that he's about to walk me through.
Yeah. I wish I had an exact reference to this. I just remember from a philosophy class that I had, but yeah. Basically, there's this tribe of, I believe, Native Americans. Whether or not my historical and geological information are correct, the actual story is true. But so there was this tribe, I believe, in the Pacific, on the Pacific coast of the United States, maybe it was the Pacific Northwest, who held this belief that it was okay to take a life to make up for the loss of life, uh, even if the victims were unrelated. So, like, a chieftain returns from a hunting trip to find that his wife and child have succumbed to some illness. So he takes his people and he takes a raiding party and he moves um, to find another tribe. He attacks the tribe and he um, executes two people from that tribe because his tribe is stronger, and he takes them and he kills them. And then he feels better and he doesn't feel upset anymore because he has made up for the death of his loved ones by taking
Uh-huh.
another by taking two other lives. And so it's just this idea that, like, this was totally okay to this tribe, and obviously there are a uh, this is strong in my mind because when when Christian missionaries came to these people, clearly they thought that they had objective morality because they
Hmm.
believed that God gave them their morals and they were absolute. So, you know, they had to convert these people. But the question is, if there is objective morality and people don't believe in it and they have persistent actions which reflect belief in other morals, it's like,
Is it really objective,
yeah,
right?
is it really objective? Like, shouldn't we intuitively know it
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if it's objective, or is this like, I don't know. Are we saying that these people aren't capable yet of that kind of philosophical thought?
Uh-huh.
That seems like a slippery slope because there are people. I mean, Europeans are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, like,
Yeah.
it just seems like
It seems
yeah.
like if you've got a society, and yeah, and this is like a pretty. It's not a not. It's yeah, sorry. This is like a pretty common objection to objective morality. Objective morality is kind of funny, but just like this idea that there are forms of consistent, repeated disagreement on something that seems very simple, and I don't know. I think that in in a the reason that it is objective, right, is that in a ideal world, you would be able to kind of lay out to them and kind of get them to like conform to their own to the this intuition that of premise three, and that I would kind of have to explain to them right? And I would have to ask them why. Why is it okay for you to do that? And yeah, and this is yeah, not to repeat a what I said earlier, but this is a struggle with not having the person in front of you that disagrees with you able to converse and talk it out, or have them uh, kind of explain their thoughts. Is that we have to do a lot of ascribing to that for them, and so I would. I guess my answer to that of what do I think about the specific chieftain is that I would just need to talk with him and be like, well, why? Is there something uh, in is there some way that the act of him, killing these surrounding tribes, right? Uh, is it that it somehow doesn't fall under these three parameters, um, and that if I was to like really try, and this is a bit of a reach, but uh, I would have to think that on a base level, right? The reason that if you lose two tribe members, no matter what, so you've got tribe one and tribe two, they've both got 40 members, and you lose two tribe members, in order to not have the rest of your tribe wiped out, right? While you still have relatively the same amount of numbers, you would then have to go knock two members out of the other tribe, and that way you get to coexist, uh, I guess, peacefully and maintain some type of the most amount of benefit for everybody, because you're able to coexist peacefully because you don't get one tribe that continually gets more powerful and more powerful and then eventually wipes it out. And it might even be the case that under natural law theory, like what's the term for it? Executions, um, not corporal punishment,
Capital punishment.
capital punishment. Yeah, it might just simply be the case that capital punishment uh, isn't okay in current society, but would have been in that society, because now in current society we have the ability to set them away in a jail until they reform, whereas they didn't have that opportunity, and so that's why it's okay.
Point. Yeah, sure, fair enough.
Um, and so maybe they got there for the wrong reasons, but they still did what would be fall under objective morality, which is this
But
idea.
shouldn't they know the right reasons though?
Yeah.
I guess that this is pulling back to the earlier argument that we don't that this is the
Uh-huh.
this is the part that we can't really
Yeah.
prove.
Yeah. And so this is the part that we can't prove, or this is the we can only draw so many legal systems from the objective moral truths that we know. And so some of them are just going to come up to judgment calls. And over time, right, we should be on a trajectory to get to the best system. And that's another thing that I kind of wish I expressed more in my paper, is that with natural law theory, it's not like you're going to put in this perfect system and everything's going to be fine and good and there's no room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like over time, you're going to get closer to the truth of what an objective morality is, and through that, you're then going to be able to you're going to have to readjust the legal system, right? You're going to have these amendments. You're going to have to change these laws, and that type of thing.
It seems like even if you get the absolute perfect legal system, it's not like it's not like it's going to turn your society into utopia.
Yeah.
Like you're still going to have people who are going to probably get away with things and game the system because.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're not going to immediately be like, oh, well, we have the perfect legal system, so now society's perfect, because there's still going to be bad people, but you're going to be able to punish the bad people, and that's the purpose of the legal system, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any any other things that you want to go through before we wrap this up?
Mm, I don't really think so. I think that most of the problems that I see are with most of the problems are the ones I already brought up with 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I think that's really all I can think of. Was those were the ones that stuck out in my mind, at least,
Mm-hmm. All
as
right.
being worth talking about.
Yeah. Um, all right. Well, if that's it, then yeah, thanks so much for participating in this. And then
Absolutely,
I'll stop the recording.
great.